And this is why I respect women so much. And men who beat their wives, ill-treat them, and boast that they have many children, to me, that is the greatest disgrace on earth. Nothing surpasses that.
Oh, my mama, to me you were so wonderful. Oh, my mama.
Woman, empower thyself and listen to The W.E.T Show. I'm your host, Hattie C. It's a podcast for women, a podcast for men supporting women. Listen as we engage women from all walks of life, share about her business, her experiences, her relationship, her story with you on The W.E.T Show. Join us in all our social media platforms as we send out live.
What kind of man sits down and asks himself, what if I were a woman being hunted, violated, silenced, erased? Today on The W.E.T Show, speaking to a man who didn't just ask the question, he felt it. But here's what I really want to understand. Who raised a man to think like that? Was it pain? Was it poetry? Or was it woman? Affectionately known as the Thinking Bean, Errol D. Bean is a Jamaican poet, author, educator, and songwriter whose work spans over 4 decades, blending culture, spirituality, and social consciousness. His latest work, Elevated Liberty, challenges us to rethink identity, humanity, and gender, especially through his article, What If I Were a Woman? A man raised in the influence of a strong woman who now uses his voice to advocate for them. Welcome, Errol, to The W.E.T Show.
Thank you, Sister Hattie. See?
It's nice to have you here. Now, you were raised by your mother. Am I correct? What did she model to you and not just teach you? You know, people have to be models. That's the strongest thing a child can look forward to. So what did she model?
Okay, if I interpret you correctly, my mother modeled what an ideal mother should be and twinned that with father, because the context of my life is the absence of a father who drifted on the Windrush in the 1940s, 50s, and when I was about 4 years old, promised to come back, promised to take us over as they were doing in those days. It never happened. So my mother, Errol Bean, they used to call her Miss Manas, was the one who fathered me, mothered me, and my 2 sisters. So my mother modeled the ideal woman, and she captured some of the roles that a father should have done. Not ideally, naturally. No woman can be a father, but she captured some of the modeling of the ideal father, I would say.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yes.
What did you see growing up that most boys never get to see about women?
About women, maybe perhaps I could better speak to not see about men. Because my mother lived a very controlled life. She was a member of a church of God in Maryland, where I grew up, Western Jamaica, Hanover. Because my father wasn't there, I didn't really see how women related to men. And I didn't see how men related to women in an intimate space, because the very few memories I have of my father relating to us, we were very young. I remember seeing him going off to preach at Medley, and he was fixing his tie, and I was like, he was so tall. Then I learned later that he was very short. Passed on some of that to me, of course. I didn't really see how my mother related to men in that space, because I never saw her with men coming there, sleeping there and so on. So I never knew exactly how the sex is related in intimate ways, even in private ways, if I put it that way.
Okay. Did you miss him?
I didn't get a chance to miss it. Yes, I should say, in the early stages, because when he said he was going to take us to England, I would boast to the children in my school, in Maryland Primary School, that I'm going to go to England. And from those early years, I wanted to be a singer. And I remember hoping that he would find a studio for me. I don't know how I knew about studio in Hanover in those days, but reading comics and so on, and listening to music and RJR at that time, in early years, you would want to see him. But I never really missed a father figure because I never knew that a father figure was needed until later years. When I was at high school, when I started interacting with some of the young men, I saw them doing things that I didn't know that boys could do. I don't mean bad things, just how they related, how they use urinal in the nights. I could give you this as a serious joke. I was staying with some friends when I was at high school and at his home in Frankfield. And in the night, the guy stood up and urinated, and I cussed him out. I asked him, he was indisciplined and indecent. You should stoop and urinate in the because that's what women did, and that's all I see. I grew up with two sisters and a mother, but that is one of the experiences I had because I didn't have a father. I'm sure if he were around, I would see him use the chamber pot to urinate standing. But I never saw that.
Okay. Do you think you were raised to be strong or you were raised to be sensitive?
Maybe both, to be sensitive and to be strong, because my mother had to toughen up. She had to fight to keep us alive when women or people who were more well off in Hanover begged her for us, like, would give her a goat kid or chicken.
Ooh.
She never gave us away, so there was strength in that. And at the same time, tenderness, because I live closely to women, and some of the experiences that I've observed as a child, I wouldn't even say them here, but women had particular times of the months when certain things happened to them. I could say this period, we are enlightened now. And in those days, don't want to give out everything about my mother. She must be smiling now. In 1990, some time ago, 74, I would see certain things, that they use when they did have sanitary napkins and so on. And I never knew what it was, but it gave me a little tenderness for women. And out of that experience with my sisters, she telling my sisters how to clean themselves and so on, I picked up tenderness. And at the same time, you could not avoid feeling the pain that women went through and that girls had to go through in their early stages. So that's part of my upbringing, my context.
Okay, thanks for that. Would you believe that men raised by women, they would understand women differently?
Well, I can only say yes from my experience, because I don't know if I was raised by a father or mother and father in the same space, if I would have been the man that I turned out to be. And one of the things that happened to me is that I saw how my mother suffered. And because of that, I developed an empathy. And I did not even know the word empathy, that you could say I was an empath. A friend of mine, Susan K. Lawrence, he used the word to describe that I'm an empath. And I had to look it up. I knew I'm empathy, to be empathetic and so on. So out of that experience, I become an empathetic person to women. And so then, to answer the question, men who are brought up by women would inevitably pick up some tenderness. And I think that's part of the thing where I grew up with this tenderness and empathetic nature. And to couple with it, my daughter is an historian, Dr. W.E.T, and she's a gender specialist. And reading some of her papers, and when she was doing her PhD at age 24, going on there, learned a lot about gender. And therefore, all of that came part of my orientation. And what you read is the outcome of that, I think.
Okay. So, this piece is not just empathetic though, Errol. It's almost like suffering through imagination. Why did you go that far?
Suffering through imagination is an interesting concept. Thank you. I will make a note of that. Why did I go that far? It goes back to one. I just mentioned my daughter, through whom I was able to get exposed to gender thinking and gender justice and so on. And my mother, as I said, was my bedrock. My father, I had to go that far because I grew up and see what happened to girls and women. And I remember one of the first experiences of a woman being abused when I was in Lesterfield, that's Clarendon. She took us to Clarendon in the early years. Can't give you all the history here, but I was at Lesterfield Primary School or all age school. And during the recess, we went down the road and I heard a woman screaming. And they said that her husband or boyfriend used a screwdriver to stab her. And that has never left me, this screaming woman. I can't imagine, I've never known that somebody would hurt a woman and like that, because I've never seen anybody hit my mother, because we never had a father around to do that. Not that he would do that necessarily, but that experience brought something to me about the tenderness of women. Down the road, I was able to write a song named Leave the Children Alone that reflected in coordination with Cherry Natural, the poet, and going through some of the experiences of child abuse, abduction, and so on, and all of those atrocities meted out to children, especially girls. I was able to dig deep into it and relating to women, and most of my destiny helpers have been women. And therefore, even when the Ananda alert thing came out and I started seeing the faces of children who were taken away, whenever they bring on the faces of children on the television, I can't look at them. I find it hard to look at them when they are missing and so on. So I couldn't avoid getting into thinking what it must have been when a child was abducted, or when a woman is hit, boxed down and kicked and abused and so on. I had to write something about it, and I am honored that this 35-stanza piece came through me through suffering.
Which question in that piece disturbed you the most?
One of the questions that disturbed me the most would be the question of childbirth. I believe that God knows what he or she, whether God is a he or she or both, I'm not saying God is he or she, but God knows what God is doing when God allowed women to be the vehicle through which new humanity come. To me, that is the most technical, difficult experience in earth. When I was growing up, I used to see goat kids. We had a lot of goats in Clarendon and Hanover too. And I used to see the goats being born, and I couldn't understand what was happening. And dogs too. We had dogs, and I would see the dogs giving birth, and all of these things came to me in that domesticated situation. And therefore, the piece which haunts me the most is a woman who loses her shame, who puts away her inhibitions in a situation with doctors and nurses, spreads her legs, pushes out a child, maybe more than one. To me, that is an experience that no man who has had the honor and privilege of being a father should really treat lightly, because you see, this is the greatest experience that one can have, to work in tandem with the Most High God, whoever you are, however you conceive of God, to bring another human being in the world. You don't have a greater miracle than a baby being stuck, quote unquote, in a mother's womb for 9 months, if it goes the normal way, and then comes out and stretches the mother's body, pushes out that child, or maybe more than one, especially if it's not cesarean section. If it's even cesarean, and after that and so on. To me, that is the highest thing that can happen. And this is why I respect women so much. And men who have beat their wives, ill-treat them, and both that they have many children. To me, that is the greatest disgrace on earth. Nothing surpasses that. So the piece about this section about how would I cope with the trauma of giving birth, the postpartum and so on, all those problems, and also the cutting, the female circumcision. Those things are very painful for me. Of course, the idea of rape, it is unforgivable, because that is the most sacred thing that a woman has to offer and share with a man, their life in that way. And when you violate a woman that way, it's unforgivable. I am pained by these things. I'm disturbed by them, and therefore I don't even like to hear about those things, And especially women, girls who are put on the stand, witness stand, and re-traumatized as if they were the ones who did the wrong. Those things pain me a lot. And people boasting about groping women and so on and all that. And other catcalling and so on, and backing women that they are childless and cat ladies and all them foolishness there. Those are the things that pain me most about women, and I had to write about them. And not just for a tribute to my mother, but as an expression. Any man who cannot put himself in the place of a woman and think what it must have been is a man who would not know how to treat a woman fully. You can't know if you don't empathize and walk, not just metaphorically in her shoes, but go through her experience, imaginatively, painful imagination, I think you had put it, and walk in that woman's shoes and live through her experience. You are not ready to be a full man, I dare say.
That was brilliant.
Thank you.
All right, so I need to know though, you think society is somehow desensitized to violence against women? Desensitized.
Sensitized. Well, yes, to an extent. I'm not an expert on gender. My daughter is, and others, who I relate to, like Professor Fox in Bridgewater University, and Professor Shepard, Dr. Alima De Jong, and other people at the university who I relate to, Motley and so on. Those other women who are in the department. Learning from them, I have seen that they are working hard to sensitize men. But when I read my daughter's work and see when she tries to help us as men to be sensitized about women's trauma and drama in terms of gender injustice and gender inequality and so on, largely we are insensitive, because if we were not, we would not style women and treat women the way we do. So there is need for us to be sensitized. This is why this poem, well, it's not just a poem, it's a reflection, painful reflection. I would love it to be a piece that I can print and give away, that all men should read it and get into trying to figure out what really it is like to be a woman. Just imagine that, man, and you will come a long way. I'm not perfect, I'm not fully empathetic, and so on, but I am getting there. And I hope before I leave this planet, I would have contributed greatly to this. And thank you for the privilege, I should say, of coming on your podcast to discuss this, because this means a lot to me, more than any accolades I could get. If I won $100,000 or US dollars for anything I do, it would not mean enough to me, like coming on a woman's podcast, the W.E.T podcast, and highlighting this and talking to you, Sister Hattie.
All right, I want to ask you a question though, that probably
Yes.
only a man can answer.
Yes.
What do you think men get wrong about women?
What men get wrong about women?
Yes.
But what for things, they may use it like that. But one of them I think men get wrong about women some men, not every man, tend to objectify women's body parts and just see a woman as a vagina. They don't even stop to realize that vagina is also one of the excretory facilities that God has put. The woman needs their vagina. But them just think that, boy, if a girl out there, a woman, don't have a man and whatever, that thing is being wasted. That is so wrong. What do you mean by it's being wasted? It is a facility that God has made for pleasure, both mutual pleasure for those who are going that direction. But it's not to objectify and just see a woman as a pretty so-and-so, a nice so-and-so, and boy, I want so-and-so, because at that they only see woman is as. I cannot believe that men objectify women and bring them down only to be a vagina, and don't see the beauty of their cultures and their body. Bring them down to a body and the bumper and so on, and those segmented parts of women. These are some of the big errors men make. Listen to me. You see me? To me, woman is the equal half of all humanity. Woman is not just the other half, is the equal half. And therefore, when you think of a woman, you don't just think of a woman as a weakling or a tender or a fragile being. This thing, quote unquote, that we call woman, it is woman to whom the Most High in his earthly existence came. You don't get it bigger than that. Those of us who embrace the Christ, who came on earth, existentialized, came in our humanity, lived like us, came through a woman. You don't need to say more than that. So men miss a lot about women. And I could talk all day about that aspect. But I'm sure you have more questions.
I do. All right. So I have a theory, though, Errol.
Yes.
Women are the architects of good men, right?
Yes.
What did your mother do right by you
What did she do right so that I could learn from her?
to be the person that you are, an advocate for women, which is quite unlikely
Yes.
for most men to do?
All right, couple of things. I have so many things, but let me sift my brain quickly. One of the things that I learned from my mother was non-violence. That's why I respect Martin Luther King Jr. And with the fellow from over India, name again, the bald-head fellow.
Yandy.
The one and only. Oh, would I forget his name? I know his name, right? I remember my mother was costed out. We were depleted extensively one evening when I was about 5, 6 or so in Hanover, Maryland. And the woman cursed her. I don't know what my mother did to her, but my mother did not answer her. When she left, I said, Mama, why didn't you answer? She said to me, the Bible says that peacemakers are the children of God. Something like that. You know the verse. Blessed are the peacemakers because they shall be the children of God. And that gave me the whole idea. You see people blocking roads and mashing up things, doing damage. People must protest and stand up peacefully. But those things, I would never get involved with them. I don't like violent protests at all. I can't deal with it. My mother wasn't that. Also, my mother, I wrote a song, and Ken Bood, legendary Ken Bood, thank you, Ken Bood, in 2004, recorded that song with me named My Mama. And it part of what my mother did for me, as I said earlier, was to be a father in that space.
What do you
Okay,
think
then.
women should intentionally teach their sons today?
Okay. Well, a lot, again, women should teach their sons to be good boys to girls who they relate to. Don't hit girls. Don't pattern what they see in the society of people styling girls. They should teach their sons to be good partners, because not everyone going to become a husband. And most importantly, to be good fathers. Now, the fear I grew up with was whether I would be a good father. I can tell you this, my wife wouldn't mind this because it's not something bad. When we were at university in the 70s, and my wife and I met up there, I've met some place in Frankfield years ago, and we renewed acquaintance. I can say this for the benefit of those who are afraid to get married. I had to get psychiatric treatment just to overcome the fear of relationship. And we didn't have to pay because I was at UTC being trained to be a pastor. And I was so afraid. Met this lovely woman who I know I could not walk away from, but I knew something was wrong. I don't remember who introduced me to him, but I went there and he counted me and he said to me, you know something? You are going to be a good father. That's what my psychiatrist said to me. And because my father left my mother and made her a single married woman in her early years, I was afraid that I might have done the same thing. And if I had children, I wouldn't be a good father. And I can tell you this, of the many good things, I've not been perfect, but of the many good things I have done is to be the best father. I haven't gotten any father of the year. Nobody, please don't nominate me, no one. I'm pretty old in life now. Give some younger guys. But I, Errol Dale Bean, the thinking being, is one of the best fathers that any one daughter could have. I'm proud of my daughter, Dr. Dale Bean, our daughter, Infinity Gloria, my wife, who's been a great mother to her. Sorry, she's not available to pop on to talk to you. But listen, my father gave me an example of what a man should not be. And I'm thanking the Most High that I had the honor and privilege of canceling out that, and I became a good father. My daughter will tell you. She knows that I do some foolishness, like when she was to graduate from Woolmer's, I didn't make her go to her ball. Oh my God, I couldn't conceive of my daughter going to a ball. Up to now, she talks to me about it, you know. But she forgive me, we make it on good. The point is, I am a good father. And a woman should teach her child if she is not even a husband, to be the best father that you can be. If a woman gets that cross to a man, you have achieved great things, because one woman being well treated by a husband and be a good father to her daughter, you don't ask for better than that away from life itself.
Because it has a ripple effect.
Yes, it has a ripple effect. Definitely.
What woman is treated well, then she has the frame of mind to outstretch that to the kids. So that is actually a fact.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You think a man can become emotionally intelligent without feminine influence?
It is possible, but if you don't get the experience, if you have not been exposed to what a woman goes through, you don't get influenced by a woman, I doubt it. You cannot be fully. I would not be able to write this piece, What If I Were a Woman, if I did not experience my mother, if I did not experience my two sisters, if I did not experience living with my wife, if I did not experience having a daughter who is a good daughter, not perfect necessarily, but a good daughter. If you do not have the influence of a woman, to me, maybe I'm wrong. You cannot be that man that you need to be without influence of, because two sides. It is the black and the white. It is the negative and the positive of the universe that is written in the universe, in the DNA of the universe. We need each other. Without a good woman, a good man, it doesn't really have the fullness of what the Most High intended.
Definitely. I'll agree with that one, Errol.
Yes, yes.
All right. So what kind of men would the world produce, you think, if boys were raised with emotional awareness instead of emotional suppression?
Well, so emotional suppression is not my area of expertise, but I think it means that if we allow boys to be human, allow them to cry, allow them to have feelings and to express their feelings, if we allow that to happen, men will grow up with emotional intelligence, being empathetic towards women. And that's my short answer to that.
Well done.
Yes, thanks.
For that. What responsibility do men have in advocating for women? You, as an advocate, would know this very well. Could you just outline for the men probably watching, what responsibility do men have in advocating for women?
All right. That point came over strongly to me when I started relating to Professor Fox. She was in charge of the University Department of Gender Studies, the regional office. She was the one who spotted this poem and gave me some ideas about it and fixed it so that it become educational valuable. So then people like she helped me to see what it means to be a man and to be looking out for women, to partner with women, I should say. And when I had the honor of going online and do an online class for her, and that was a very big thing for me too, I learned the concept that men are to be partners with women or partner with gender specialists, to be like feminists, so to speak, to be partners, because I consider myself a feminist. No, I am an indirect feminist, and I'm proud of that. I cannot avoid being that with my daughter, being the kind of gender specialist she is, and the women who I've told you about, who I relate to at that high level from the university and other places along the road. The women who I relate to on Facebook, many of them are my friends who will listen to this podcast, and some of them will share their testimonies too. They are the ones who help me to see that one of the greatest roles that a man can play is to partner with those who are seeking to liberate women. And I'm happy that working with Professor Fox of the Bridgewater State University, I have learned that concept and I'm living it. Partnership with women and women's organizations is one of the best things any man can do.
Okay, well said, Errol. Well said.
Thank you.
How can men speak up for women without making themselves the center of the message?
Okay, so without being the center of the message, one of the things that men can do is, one, what I have done. Write about it. Write about it. When you call into radio programs, talk about it. When you get on podcasts, talk about it. I listen to TikTok. I listen to some men beating down women in their grasmite and treating women as if they are nothing. Those things must stop. So if you get on a podcast, talk on behalf of women. You don't have to be a softie to be a defender of women. You don't have to be a softie to be a defender of girls. You don't have to be just effeminate and lose your masculinity to talk of women. So you can write a poem, call into these talk shows, get a chance to get an interview on this podcast. I'm sure some men will be willing to come. If you can call into the radio shows and talk about this and write a book, if you can, those are some of the things that men can do without putting themselves into it to be the subject. Because hopefully I have not been the subject of the piece that I've written and other poems that I've written about women and gender issues. Yet, but those are some of the simple things off the top of my head, I would say that men can do to help communicate the message of gender equality without putting themselves into the message or becoming the message themselves.
Right. Okay, so you think empathy is enough, Errol, or is action required?
Well, I would be silly to say it is enough. It is not enough. Empathy without works and action is dead. If you just pray and don't become the answer to the prayer you pray, it is nothing. So then, yes, you have to start with empathy. If you don't love somebody, if you don't feel for somebody, you can't help them. Most of the women who I have helped, and men too, but the women who I've seen and gone to, because I have a love for them. Love doesn't mean that you're going to explore how you can whatever, and so on. I mean, love them. Because if you don't love them, you won't do things for them and take action. So I love women. I love women a lot. And there are women who I come across who have loved and have been kind to. So then, but to be empathetic is the beginning of it, is the germ. But you have to carry out some actions. Okay.
As Jamaicans would say, not a bag of mouth.
That's about them. Listen to me. You see, when I talk to young men these days, I said to them, look, you're talking to this girl and you want this woman to get involved with her. She have teeth in her head. Some of them are bad. You have all the dentist thing when go. They use gas. Most of them use gas. When them gas done, you go and ask them how the gas go, bro. When them go to work, my boss fear. You say you must mind a woman, just mind woman. When them nails get too long and them want filling and want cut, you know it go when them hair need to fix whatever they're doing with their hair. All the things that women need to make them look good and feel good. If you don't do some of them, the empathy alone don't get you anywhere. I've said all of that to say empathy is good, but I have a record of helping a lot of women who have met with babies without fathers. I have done a lot for many of them, but the point I'm saying, I have helped a lot of women as a practical demonstration, as a tribute to my mother, who, if she did not get help with me and my two sisters, we would have been given away like goat kids or chickens or whatever you give away in those days. So it's a rigmarole answer, but empathy alone cannot work. Just as prayer alone and faith without works is dead. Do something, man. Do something. Say something. Act it out and make yourself become a good advocate for women and girls and, boys too. But we are talking about women now. All right? Part of the thing.
Okay, thanks. Thanks again for that, Errol.
Yes, you're
It's
welcome.
a mouthful, but it's well worth the hearing and the waiting to hear.
Thank you.
So I also need for you, we usually have a segment on the WET show called the Queen Bee segment.
Yes.
But seeing that we don't have a Queen Bee today,
Yes.
we have a King Bee. I want for you now to get that space and shine, highlight your book in terms of, could you read from any segment at all from your book? Something that, you think the world needs to know, even if they'll never read your book. They can hear this one thing and take action.
Okay. The piece that comes to my mind is number 108 in the book. And we have exhausted if I were a woman, and it's philosophical, so we won't bother read that one today.
Okay.
But I could say that the Journal of International Women's Studies, connected to Bridgewater University, kindly published this piece in that journal. And you can visit it and download it and have it free of cost. All right? That poem number 3. I don't mind people, everybody having it. I don't have to get paid for it. I want it to be given away. Number 3 in my book, What If I Were a Woman? Kindly published by the Journal of International Women's Studies, courtesy of Professor Fox and her team. All right. So one of the pieces that I wrote is called Woman to Every Woman. I'm not an expert reader, but let me read this if I can get through it, okay? It says, bitch, slut, Eve, Delilah, vixen, virago, tigress, witch, wretch, mule, whore, she-lion, she-wolf, tigress, Jezebel, she-devil, empress, saint. Must she be rich or poor, docile and humble, weak and willing, married or shy, single and chaste, a virtuous, virgin, religious and respected, faithful and friendly and happy with her lot to be deemed a decent woman? Does she have to be black or white, yellow or brown, fat, rotund or slim and trim, short or tall, petite or pleasingly plump, a healthy and fertile, seductive and a sexually active, breasted mother to be a full woman? Is there a different set of rights and wrongs, do's and don'ts by which she is judged just because she is a woman? A woman, a woman. Her hair brunette or blonde and both to be seen as a beautiful woman, dubbed cute, pretty, ugly, beautiful. And yet, you, blessed being, the equal half of all humanity, the nesting womb of life, endowed with strength and powered by courage, you are woman, mother of man and God enfleshed. My tribute, woman. Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, I also want to find out a little bit, though, in terms of your legacy. Who are you becoming as a man in today's world? Knowing what today is like, knowing in what year you were born and what era.
Okay, I was born on the 14th of February, 1951. I'm 75 years old. I am just coming into a better understanding of what it means to be a man of all these years and to be an advocate for women. My legacy, I have written 3 books. A Flower Blooms, 1998. One on Cynthia Slash when she died a few weeks after having the last show with me at Pegasus, called Cynthia Slash, An Inspiration of Love and Friendship. And my latest book, Elevated Livity, Poetic Reasoning and Nuggets of Wisdom. That's a lot of writing, 400 and odd pages. All right. Now, I've recorded a lot of music. Some released, some not released. I'm not an entertainer, so people don't know me as a singer, but I've recorded more music than some of the big stars. God willing, I will do them, get them over time and put them in a space. My legacy I want to leave is this man, born in Hanover, who grew up without a father, who did not know he was poor, but was poor in that sense of deprivation from material things. This man, with the strength of his mother, living just for a few years with him, being helped by men. Yes, some men helped me along the way, and women, mostly, who have gotten education in Edwin Allen High School, then Frankfield Comprehensive, was able to go to University of the West Indies, trained by the Jamaica Baptist Union, thank them, and I was able to get free education because of the free education policy. I went to university, got my degree, and went back to university to do a postgraduate degree in education, taught at Calabar High School, at Shortwood High School, in the insurance industry, in CNWJ Credit Union, my beloved credit union for 23 years. My legacy, this man, that man, who is a proud black man, has written a lot of pieces that will help to liberate women, every woman, in all categories of the world, in the global north, global south. This is my legacy through my words, through my music, and through my daughter. My greatest legacy, along with my wife, Gloria Bean, is the daughter we call Dela. My middle name is Dale, and she's got an A into Dela Bean. She got her doctorate. I'm boasting, people. This doesn't happen to a man who had no father. I'm boasting not as a stupid man, but as an intelligent man, as a humble man, actually. My daughter is our legacy. And we look out for her. Look out for her, not only the whirlwind, but she is the next big deal in gender specialists to help liberate women in Jamaica and throughout the world. So my legacy, a man who will leave written words, music, and a daughter that is yet to conquer. And you will see what God does with her down the road. That's my legacy, and I'm proud.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So, in closing, if more men asked, what if I were a woman? Maybe women wouldn't have to keep answering that question with their lives. This has been the W.E.T Show. Thank you, and we'll see you in another. Thanks, Errol.
You're welcome. Oh my